I'm building the ultimate AI agent for my students. Today, I'm going to be focusing on step one, the 24/7 AI receptionist for new patient booking and SMS confirmation. Now, in this tutorial, I'm going to be going as slow and as thoroughly as possible. So make sure you set up your second monitor and follow along. Let's go ahead and get started by checking real quick what exactly our student wants in his appointment setter. So for the purposes of this video, we will focus on number 1, 2, and 3. So it's going to need to answer an inbound call from either a new or an existing client. Then, depending on if it's a new or existing client, we need to ask it some questions for lead qualifications, such as what kind of treatment are you interested in? Have you had this treatment before? And anything else, basically. And then if it's an existing client, we need to ask it if it needs to do things like reschedule an appointment or anything else. So this is actually really complicated. There's a lot of things going on here, but I'll show you exactly how to figure it out. So basically the way that we need to do this is that we need two simple tools. We need a tool for setting up our AI voice agent, and then we need a tool for setting up our backend, which is going to handle the automatic workflow. So the tool that we will use for our AI voice agent is called VAPI. Go ahead and go to VAPI.ai. This is what that's going to look like. By the way, you can get started for absolutely free using the links in the description. Go ahead and hit sign up. Once you've done that, you're going to see a dashboard that looks like this. Now, this is basically the overview. It'll basically just tell you some of your metrics and things like that. Now, again, when you get started, you will get 10 credits for free, which is about 200 minutes. It'll be more than enough for you to get started and find your first client. So the next tab is called metrics. And as I was saying earlier, it basically just tells you how many minutes you've used, how much it costs, and how much each call costs. Pretty basic stuff. And the three tabs that we're really going to focus on are the assistance tab, the tools tab, and the phone numbers tab. Now, the reason for that is we need to build our assistant. Then we need to create some tools to give it. And then we need to get a free phone number so that we can attach it to the assistant that we just built. So let's actually get right into it and go ahead and build our first assistant. So click on Assistants, go to Create Assistant. Here we're going to call it the Ultimate Agent. Perfect. Click on Create Assistant. This is what it's going to look like when you create your assistant from scratch. It's going to show you the cost. Right now it's saying that's 10 cents per minute. The latency, which is basically how long it takes to load. Now, I wouldn't trust this. It's actually very dependent just on the type of model you use. So really you just need to test it, and it's different for every model. So the first one that we can test out is OpenAI. Now there's a bunch that you can choose from. For example, Google's pretty common, Grok, if you like, if you want to try that out. But the point is, I've done a lot of testing and I figured out that the model that I like the most is actually called GPT 4.1 mini. And actually it looks like they just released the GPT-5 model. So that's actually pretty exciting. I'm actually going to test it because I'm almost positive that the GPT-5 nano model is going to be better than the GPT 4.1 mini. So that's actually really exciting. I'm going to test that out. So GPT-5 nano is what I'll use. And also, by the way, you can test the latency and the price here. Typically, if it's within the same model, 350 ms is obviously going to be faster than 700 ms. So this is way better. And plus it only costs 1 cent, which is actually equivalent. So we'll just go with that. Perfect. Next, we need to change our first message mode. That basically means, are we going to make the agent speak first, or are we going to wait for the other person to say something first? Now for this, it's almost always going to be assistant speaks first, because sometimes if somebody calls your number and nobody says anything, then they're going to think that it didn't work and they're just going to hang out. So we're going to use assistant speaks first. Next, we need to look at our first message. This is basically, what is the agent going to say when they answer the phone? So this is pretty simple. It's usually just something like, hello, thank you for calling, whatever business. And then how may I help you? Now, don't actually write this in. I'm actually doing this because We're later going to change it to assistant speaks first with model generated message. So we can actually just ignore all of that completely because we're basically going to put it into the system prompt. Now, what is the system prompt? The system prompt is basically the instructions that you give to the AI agent so that it can handle the workflow that you're trying to give to it. So for example, we would typically say something like, you are a helpful receptionist, and your goal is to follow the conversation workflow. And it's going to be step 1, step 2, step 3. And sometimes if you have like an if or and, something like that, you can basically say, okay, if it is a new client, then you go down this workflow. Or if it is an existing client, then go down the other workflow. So that's honestly what we're just going to do here. So it sounds like, you are a helpful receptionist. Okay. Your goal is to follow the following conversation workflow as tightly as possible. Okay, perfect. So once that is done, you can actually go over here and hit publish to save. And you can click on talk to assistant to talk to it and basically test it to see if it's doing what you want. Now, one thing to keep in mind is it takes a really long time to test this, and I've already done this for hundreds of hours. So I already have a bunch of resources that'll help us figure this out. So actually the fastest way to handle this is just use an example that I've already built and then write our new system prompt based on that example. So what you can do is you can go to my school community, and then you can go on to the YouTube prompts and templates tab. And here you can click on the post that I'm going to create and then download the files from here. That'll allow you to easily copy and paste in order to get the correct information. So I've already done that. It's going to be called check availability. It's going to be called assistant prompt real estate. Open that up, Control A to select all, Control C to copy. Now go to VAPI, Control A, Control V. Now, obviously this is going to be for a real estate appointment setter. So we need to update it for the case that we're trying to create, which is for a med spa. But this is important because it gives us a really good baseline of what we need to have, because if you don't have some of these elements, it's going to completely fail. So for example, we need to start first of all with just telling it what the current time is. If you don't tell it what the time is, it's going to look for a date that's like, years in the past or years in the future, and it's not going to be correct. All right. So we need to tell it what time it is. After that, we need to give it what's called a knowledge base. It's just some information that you might need to reference later in the conversation. After that, we need to give it what's called a role, which is we basically say, here's your name, here's what you do, and this is your primary goal. So your name is Brenda, you are a receptionist for the business name, your personality, and your primary goal is to qualify clients and book an appointment. Perfect. And finally, we're going to give it some principles, which is just rules to help it guide what it needs to do. And then down here, we need to tell it its actual conversation playbook. So this will basically be a step-by-step playbook that it goes, okay, well, here's the first thing I'm going to say. And then depending on what they say, I'm going to do step 2. Or depending on what they say there, I'm going to do part B, part A, whatever, right? So let's go through that. Again, it just takes a really long time to test this. And it doesn't really make sense for me to test this with you because it'll literally take hours to do. So perfect. And at the very end, step 7, we just make sure that it uses the correct tool to book the appointment. So now you're probably wondering, why am I using a real estate prompt for a med client agent? Well, the answer is I'm not. I'm only using this as an example to make it easier for me to craft exactly what I need for the med spa niche. So what I'll do is I'll actually copy all of this and then go to your favorite AI. This is the AI that I like to use. It's called Google AI Studio. And the reason why I like this is because you can actually change the temperature. Now, I didn't mention temperature yet, but it's actually available in VAPI as well. And basically what temperature is, it typically ranges between 0 and 1. You can go above 1, but once you do that, it gets really crazy. But essentially what temperature is it's how crazy the AI agent is. So if we set it at 2, it's going to be extremely crazy. It's going to say stuff that you probably don't want it to say. And actually we can test this real quick too. But what I've found is that temperature of 0.4 is going to be the best pretty much for any application. And the reason why is because if you set it too low, the answers are going to be the exact same every time. And actually, it's really not that accurate. for some reason. So it does need some degree of freedom or craziness, right? But if you set it to 1, it's a little bit too varied, and it's a little bit it does misunderstand sometimes. So I found that the best balance is 0.4. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, here is an example prompt. Okay, and give it some space. And then I'm going to go back over to the requirements from my student. And I'm basically going to give it the requirements so that it knows exactly how to create it. Okay. So now go back over here. And here are the requirements for the new AI agent that I am creating for the med spa niche. Give some more space. Now that it has the context that it needs, all that we need to do is give it a goal. Basically tell it what we need it to do. So your goal is to give me the updated assistant prompt that would properly handle the conversational flow for the med spa agent using the requirements and using the example for the real estate agent as an example. Okay. Now, once that is done, all you need to do is hit run and just wait for a minute or so, and it'll give you a perfect answer. Okay. Now, next we can go back to VAPI and do some more setup. So as I was saying, here you can actually change the temperature from 0 to, I think, 2 as well. The default is set to 0.5. That does work, but I've just found that 0.4 is better. So I usually use 0.4. And by the way, you can actually add files. This is basically if you want to add some company information, you can actually just download it and then upload it here. But the reason why I don't like that is because it doesn't update very well. So every time your file changes, you need to go back here and manually update it. That's not very scalable. What's better is to just use a separate workflow for n8n called a RAG, which is Retrieval Augmented Generation. If you use my template, you'll be able to automatically update your company information, and the agent will be able to automatically have the most up-to-date information at all times. Perfect. Now, the tokens can just stay the same. That just talks about how long is the maximum length of the answer. So if you make it too long, it's gonna, talk for minutes on end. So you don't want that. Just leave it at 250. All right. So next is the voice configuration. Here we have a provider and the voice. Now, provider basically means these are a bunch of different companies that provide voice agents. So for me, the one that I like the most is called Deepgram, Aura 2, and the voice is called Thea. Now, I like this one just because she has a British accent, but honestly, you can choose any of these. There's thousands of them for you to choose and test from. So that's perfect. Now, additional configuration. This is just some background music. Usually it's like a call center. You'll hear like ringing and stuff like that. So the default's usually fine. The transcriber is basically what are we using to listen to the conversation. If we want to make this agent multilingual, we would change the providers to something like multilingual or 11 Labs multilingual, okay? But for our purposes for now, we'll just leave it as English. Next, we need to look at our tools. Now, tools are basically things that we can give to the AI agent, and then we need to tell it how to use the tool. And that is basically going to give it a very structured way to do the functions that we need it to do. So for example, some of the tools that we're going to want to give it are things like qualifying the lead, checking the availability in the calendar, and booking the appointment. Now, if we don't use an actual tool and we try to accomplish this by only using the system prompt, there's a very high chance that it doesn't do it correctly. That's why we need to use a tool and make some fields required so that it can only use it once it has gathered the proper information. So in order to set up our tools, first of all, let's go ahead and hit save, make sure it's correct. And actually, before we do that, let's go and check on our assistant prompt and make sure that looks good. So as you can see, it is writing our assistant prompt. It says that, okay, the business name is called the Glow Clinic, which is fine. You are Chloe. welcoming and professional patient coordinator. That sounds good. Perfect. Greet the user with your first message. Thank you for calling Glow Clinic. This is Chloe. How may I help you? That sounds fine. Follow the correct path based on the conditional tool. If the user is a new client, it's going to say something like this, and then it's going to try to get some information. So once the information is all done, it's going to call the qualify new client tool. So that's really good to know because we're going to need to put this in our automated workflow later to give it the permission to use the check availability tool once it's ready. So same thing here, it's going to ask for a handle existing client tool. So that's already two tools that we need to create. So after it's done with talking to the client, it needs to basically ask what it needs to do next. So for example, it needs to ask, the next step is to book a consultation. Okay. So once we have a time, then we need to use the check availability tool right here. That's perfect. And then once they have selected a time, then we need to say, okay, just confirm I have you down for a certain time. And then we'll use the book appointment tool. So this all makes sense. Now, I do realize that it's not quite what our student asked for because they're asking for things like rescheduling. Now, let's see, where is it? Yeah, they're asking for things like rescheduling and post-treatment. I'm going to get to that in future videos. As you can see in my full course, I think we have it here, rescheduling here. So client management, that's going to be part 4. Now, the reason for that is it's a little bit more advanced. And for this video, I'll just keep it very simple with just the appointment setter. And then we'll get to those more advanced features later. So now we're going to go ahead and use this prompt for our agent just to make sure that it's working. And then we can always update it later. So go back over here and go ahead and hit copy to clipboard. Go back over to VAPI. Now we need to go to our system prompt and paste it in. Okay, perfect. Publish to save. Now, the amazing thing about this is since our AI already has all this information, it's going to be able to help us in the future when we're developing our tools. So go over to VAPI, click on tools. Now we need to create the 4 tools that I just told you about. It's going to be, I believe it's qualify the new lead, or it's going to handle the existing client, or it's going to check the availability, or it's going to book the appointment. So the easiest way to do this, honestly, is to just go over here and I'm going to give it the code for my 2 tools that I've already created. And then I'm going to ask it to create the tools that it basically put into the system prompt. So I'm going to copy these over and I'm going to say, good. Now I need you to give me the tool JSON for the 4 tools that you mentioned in the previous system prompt. In your response, I need you to give me full tool JSON for the remaining 2 tools, each in their own block of code. Triple check for accuracy. Okay. Now, so what did I do here? Basically, I gave it some context saying, okay, well, here are the 2 tools that we already have. So that means that we have 2 more tools that need to be done. And the goal is to basically give me the code for the remaining 2 tools. And finally, I asked it to triple check for accuracy. That's really important because sometimes if you only do this once, it will get the logic sometimes incorrect. This model is actually very good at getting it right on the first time, but it doesn't hurt to just say triple check for accuracy. So go ahead and hit run and just let it run. So the way that this will work, go back to VAPI, is we'll just hit create tool to go ahead and get it started. So custom tool. We'll just go ahead and start with what we already know, which is the check availability tool and the book appointment tool. So go ahead and name it check availability, just like that. Next, it's going to ask for a description. We can type in a description, something like, this tool will allow the agent to check the availability of the Google Calendar, something like that. But the crazy thing is it actually doesn't need that information. It doesn't use it at all for deciding how to use the tool. So I usually just leave this blank. Now, some other options that we have are to enable to execute asynchronously, which basically means that it can activate multiple tools at the same time. I personally don't use this very often, if at all, because usually conversations are all very stepwise, right? We want to do one step, and then once that step is done, do the next step. Sometimes if you have too many tools running at the same time, it's not going to work properly. Next, we can also enforce strict parameter validation, which is kind of redundant because down here, if we just say that it's required, then it's required. So I've personally never tried using this. I don't think it's important because, as I said, we can just make sure that it's required in the parameter section. So what are the parameters? Parameters is basically saying what information does our tool need in order for it to get used. So for example, for the check availability tool, what are we probably going to need? Well, we're probably going to need a time or a day where we can search in order to know which day or which days to find the available slots for, right? So basically, we need to create a property called initial search date time. And like I said earlier, that's basically going to give us a set moment in time, after which point we can look for available slots in the calendar. So it's going to be type string because the type that we're going to use is what's something called an ISO date time format. So now the description here is actually really important because that tells the agent what the tool is and how to use the tool. So we would say something like the initial search date and time in ISO format. Okay. And again, this takes a while to test. So the best thing to use is actually to just get the information from my school community. So I've already done that. Just go ahead and click on check availability and it'll give you the code. So as you can see, the description says the target date for the availability search, formatted as a full ISO 8601 date time string, representing midnight in the Chicago time zone. The AI must calculate this based on the user's request. So as you can see, it's really detailed, and that's why it's much easier to just get it from information that I've already created. So Control A, Control C to copy. Now here, if you want to create it using no code, you can just hit required here and you would just hit apply. And as you can see, it set it up initial search day and time as type string. And the red star here means that it's required. So that's perfect. However, I want to make sure that the description is 100% accurate. So what I'll do is I'll click on Visual Editor and that'll allow me to change the code, make it extremely easy to enter. So Control A to select all, Control V to paste, and then hit apply. So, and then you could uncheck this in order to look at what it looks like using no code. So as you can see, initial search day and time, type string required. And then you can hit this pencil to just double check that the description is correct. So as you can see, the description is loaded correctly. So apply, save. All right, now that is the check availability tool all done. So we're just going to create our next tool, which is the book appointment tool. So go ahead and create new tool, custom tool. This will be called book appointment. Perfect. So skip the description, skip the options, go down to parameters. So for the book appointment tool, what type of properties do you think we'll probably need? Well, in order to book appointment, we need the client's name, and then we need the start time, and then we need the end time. That's basically what we need to book an appointment, right? So as I said earlier, you can go ahead and click add property and manually type it in one by one if you want, or if you want to save some time, go ahead and double click the file that you downloaded from my school community. Click on Control A, Control C to copy. Go over here, click on Visual Editor and paste it in. And then scroll down, hit apply. And then uncheck this in order to check what it looks like using a no code. So here it's saying that it's collecting a client name of type string. Oh, by the way, string just means it's text and not things like numbers. So if you're trying to collect numbers, it will be a different format. Okay. And again, the red star just means that's required. And if we click on this, the pencil here, we can check the description. So the full name of the person booking the appointment. It's pretty simple. So same thing with end date and time. We can check that. The end date and time for the appointment, 15 minutes after the start date time. Example. Okay. So remember, it is important that this is correct. So remember in our system prompt, I believe it was 30 minutes. So we do need to change this to 30 minutes. You just gotta make sure that everything's consistent. Okay. Lastly, start day and time. The exact start day and time for the appointment in ISO 8601 format. So that sounds correct. Perfect. Apply. So that is our second tool fully created. Now, as I said earlier, we need to enter in the 2 new tools that we hopefully have gotten from our assistant over here. So here it says that here is the code for the qualify new client, and here is the code for the handle existing client. That's pretty cool, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy to clipboard, and I'm just going to remember that this tool is going to be called qualify new client. So go over to VAPI, create tool, custom tool. So we call it qualify new client. Okay. Skip, go down to parameters, and I'm going to go to visual editor, check, paste, apply, save, and then uncheck this to check if it's doing it correctly or not. So had before, it sounds like what it's doing is it's checking to see if the client has had the treatment before. So yeah, that's exactly what it says here. That sounds correct. So that's good. Here, it looks like it's collecting a client name, which is good, but what I would prefer is that it actually doesn't collect it here and instead collects it only when it's ready to book the appointment. Okay. Actually, wait, that's okay. Qualify a new client. Let's see. Yeah, that sounds correct. So we can just get rid of this client email. Okay. So I would actually prefer to not collect an email here because if we're collecting email over the phone, there's a very high chance that it actually screws it up. So what would be better is if we really want to collect the email, we can actually send them a text message from the agent. And then once they answer that text message, the agent can actually get that information and then automatically update the CRM with it. So let's go ahead and delete that for now. We can always change it later. Now, the next one is the client phone. Looks like it's trying to collect the phone number. Now, the issue with this is again, it can sometimes screw this up pretty badly. And also, this is actually really redundant because the AI agent is smart enough to basically read the phone number that they're calling from. So we already have this information. We don't need to collect it again. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And finally, it's collecting a treatment interest, which I'm guessing is just what type of treatment they want. So, yep, examples, that sounds perfect. Cool. Apply, save. Now that that is done, I'm going to create a new tool and then get that information from our AI agent. So go over here, handle existing client, and this is the code for it. So click on copy to clipboard, go to VAPI. The tool name is going to be called handle existing client. Scroll down to parameters, click on visual editor, paste it in here, click apply, save, and then uncheck the visual editor to see what it looks like with no code. Here, it looks like it's collecting a task. The specific action the existing client wants to perform must be one of reschedule, cancel, new booking, or ask a question. It sounds correct. It'll be a little bit difficult because we haven't set this up yet, but we'll figure out that out later. So apply. Client identifier. The identifying information for the existing client. This could be their phone name or their phone number. That sounds good. So what we'll have to do later is in our CRM, we're going to make sure that our agent is able to get that information from our database to identify our client. So that looks perfect. Go ahead and hit save to finish that. Okay. All right. So now that we made some changes to the tool code, what we should actually do is get that code, feed it back into our AI, and then get the AI to give us the updated system prompt. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the code for all of these, copy, and then I'm going to create a Google Doc. Okay. And in the Google Doc, I'm going to create a new document. And in here, I'm going to paste the code so that I have it in one spot to feed it back to the LLM. So this is going to be the code for handle existing client. Okay. And then I need the code for the qualify new client. Qualify new client. Get the code for the book appointment. Actually, this is the same, so I don't need to change that. And that's the same, so I don't need to change that. So now I'm going to hit Control A, Control C to copy. Go back to our AI and say, good. I have made some changes to the tool JSON. Given these changes, I need you to update the system prompt to follow my updated conversation or my updated tools so that the updated conversation flow matches my updated tools. That sounds weird, but that's fine. Here is the code for my updated tools. Now I'll just let that run. Now, while that's loading, go back to VAPI. And now that we've created 4 different tools, we need to go back to our assistants and give it those tools. So go ahead, click on assistants, scroll down to the tools tab, click on tools, click on select tools. And here we can just hit select all because we only have 4 tools and they all belong to this agent. So select all. So now, as you can see, it owns the handle existing client tool, qualify new client tool, book appointment tool, and the check availability tool. So go ahead and save that. So now let's check to see if our system prompt has been written yet. Looks like it's still loading. Let's actually just try to see if we can figure this out manually. But basically, I would say the only difference is, like, as you can see here, it's trying to collect things like the client name, client phone, and client email, but we just changed it. So we obviously need to fix that here. So, okay, cool. Updated VAPI assistant prompt, revised flow. By simplifying the qualify new client tool, you're creating a more natural 2-stage qualification process. Yeah, so that's basically what I was trying to achieve is I don't want to ask a bunch of random questions at the beginning. This is too much friction, right? I'd rather just make sure that they're ready to get a new treatment. And then once they're ready to book the appointment, then I can ask them for their information. So, okay, cool. So go ahead and copy this to the clipboard. Let's just read this real quick, see if it's good. Have you had this treatment before? That sounds good. Okay. After the tool has been called, make the offer. So once it's ready, use the check availability tool and then book the appointment. That looks perfect. So let's go over here, Control A, Control V to paste and publish. Now the thing here is I would rather spend more time testing it and then figure out what went wrong than trying to read it one by one and trying to fix it first. So it's much faster if you try to, it's much faster if you just move fast and then fix it as you kind of go. So I believe that's all done. So the next thing that there is to do is go to phone numbers and create a phone number. So click on phone numbers, click on create a phone number, and you can choose whatever area code that you want. If you live in a particular area, you're going to want to choose that area so it looks more natural when people call your phone number. But for me, since it doesn't matter, I'll just hit 326. And by the way, you can get up to 10 free US phone numbers per account when you sign up using the link in the description. So go ahead and do that. That would be very good. So go ahead and click create. Usually takes some time to get that loaded. It's like 2 minutes to get it activated, but that's fine. Okay, well, it's saying that's not available, so we'll hit, I guess, 223. Perfect. So now it just gave me a free phone number, and this is basically the number that I will be able to call in order to test out my agent. And later on, when I get a client or when my student gets his client, then he'll be able to basically just give this phone number to that client, and then they'll be able to use that in their website or in all their promotions. And that's how people are going to be able to reach this client. So, all right. So the phone number label is just any name, doesn't really matter, but we'll just name it Ultimate Agent. And then here is our inbound phone number. That's correct. And we just need to select the assistant that we created. And basically what this does is it says, when somebody calls this phone number, what agent is going to answer the phone? And here we just said that we want the ultimate agent to answer the phone. So that's perfect. Now later on, we're going to do outbound settings, but that's going to be for lead reactivation. And that's going to be in another video. So go back over here and hit save. Done. So now what do we just do? We just set up our assistants. We just set up our tools. After we set up our tools, we went back to our assistants and we gave our assistant the tools that we just created. Finally, we created a free phone number, and then we assigned to that phone number the assistant that we just created. That's perfect. Our VAPI is perfectly completed. Now, the next thing to set up is our backend or our automated workflow. What does that mean? Well, The program that I use and which I think is the best for this is called N8n. It looks like this, links in the description. You can get started for absolutely free with this one as well. So go ahead and hit get started for free. Once you've done that, you're going to see a screen that looks somewhat like this. It's going to give you overview, your personal workflows, and just information about your account and things like that. And in the middle here is what we're interested in. This is a no-code automated workflow builder that will allow us to create workflows that we can use repeatedly, automatically, 24/7. So it's extremely useful. So in order to get started, you may have to go here and click on the plus sign to hit new workflow. So I'll just try that. Yeah, because it's already a new workflow, it's going to make it look like this. So it's going to look like this. And basically what we need to do is we need to add blocks or nodes in order to tell the workflow what exactly it needs to do. So we can just get started real quick, click add first step. Now, these are going to be the different ways that we can automatically trigger or start the workflow. So just to keep it simple, I guess we'll just start with trigger manually. Now, trigger manually just means that you can come over here and click execute workflow and it'll automatically start. But obviously that does require you to manually click start. So what we can do now is if we click on the plus sign over here, we can add what we want it to do after the workflow starts. So let's see, in this case, I believe that we want it to do something called routing. It's actually going to be a switch node. Now, the point of a switch node is basically saying that if A, then B, right? So it's saying, okay, well, if the name of the tool is check availability, then I'm going to route it a certain direction, and that's going to help me decide which way or what part of the workflow to go in. So here, it'll basically be something like tool name is equal to check availability. Okay, I think I spelled that wrong. Availability. Okay. And then we'll just rename the output so that it's very clear on the outside when we look at our node. So we'll name it check availability. Is that spelled right? Check availability. Okay. So now I'll just exit to show you what that looks like. By the way, you can hit save every once in a while to make sure that you don't lose your progress. So yeah, here, as you can see, when I click this, it's going to go from left to right, and it's going to move over to this switch node. And right now I have one route available called the check availability route. So that's cool. Now we're going to need to add a few more routes that will basically allow us to route the workflow the way that we need it to. So we have a total of 4 different tools. So we're going to need to create 4 different ones. So tool name, this is going to be called book appointment. Rename output, book appointment. So perfect. As you can see, it just created a second step, right? So basically, if I hit plus here, I'll be able to decide what I want to do later in the workflow when the name of the tool is called check availability. And same thing with here, when the name of the tool is called book appointment, then I'll be able to decide what I want to do after here. So as you can see, it's going to take a really long time for you to manually build this out for yourself. And I've already done this using hundreds of my hours. So I'm just going to use that in order to teach you a little bit quicker. So go over to here. I have created the template for you. It's called appointment setter. Well, in this case, it's just a general template. We're going to have to adapt it for the new agent that we created, but that's going to be the example. So go ahead and hit these 3 dots over here. Click import from file. And then click on appointment setter real estate. Perfect. And as you can see, it just created or it just uploaded the entire template that will work for this agent. So as you can see, I'll just delete this real quick. Now, the way that this workflow starts is that it uses something called a webhook. Now, what is a webhook? A webhook is a URL where you pass data to that URL so that you can receive it from a different program. So basically what will happen is, if I just double click on here, you'll actually see it. As you can see, there is a URL here so that when I pass data from the tool in VAPI, it can actually receive that data from n8n. So I'll actually show you how to do that right now. Go click on production URL. Now, the reason why we're using the production URL is because we're going to need to set our workflow to active. And what that means is once it runs once, it can run twice, 3 times and over again without you having to manually activate it. Now that's important because when we make a call, it's going to run tool after tool after tool. So we can't just leave it on test, because if it's on test, it's going to run one tool and it's going to completely stop. And then you'll have to reactivate it if you want to use it again. So pretty much for our purposes, it's always going to be production, because you can always test it in production, but you can't use production in test. Okay, so click on this a couple times, just make sure that's copied. And then we're going to go back over to VAPI. Now, the point of this is to go to tools and then scroll down. There's going to be a section called server URL. That's basically saying, what is the URL to your server? And as I said earlier, our backend server is called n8n. And so the URL to our server is this. So we just paste it in here. And basically what that means is once it has the information, the data, then it's going to send it over on this URL so that it can get passed to n8n. Okay, so once that's done, go ahead and save. Now we're basically going to repeat that for all of our tools, because we need to pass the data from all of our tools to our n8n workflow. So now that that is all completed, we can go back to n8n and fill it all out. Now again, it would just take some time to just explain all of these, but for our purposes, it's almost always going to be post. Yeah, it's just going to be post, and then authentication, you can change that later once you're using production, just so other people don't attack your URL. Cool. So that's fine. And we're going to use respond to webhook, because the point here is that at the end of using each of the tools, we need to send the new data back to our agent. So for example, if we look at the check availability route, what will happen is we get the data from here, and then it goes over here. And then since the name of the tool is check availability, it's going to reroute the workflow over here. And then in these nodes, it's going to calculate the slots. It's going to get the availability from the Google Calendar, and it's going to calculate the available slots. And then it's going to respond to our AI agent with the available times, so that it'll give the client some available slots from which they can choose. And then after they've chosen a slot, then they'll say, it'll use the book appointment tool. Okay. So once it uses the book appointment tool, it's going to go over here and try to book the appointment into the Google Calendar. And once it's done that, it's going to say, success, your booking has been confirmed, something like that. Okay. And finally, we're going to need to add another tool called, I think, handle existing lead, whatever. But basically, we're going to add another webhook here, which basically says your lead has been properly qualified, or this is a existing client and they've been properly qualified, whatever. And that basically tells the AI agent that it's good to move forward. So all that we need to do here is basically update our template to make sure that it makes sense for what we just built. Now, the easiest way to do that is to just go over here and click over here. And as you can see, we need to add a new tool. So this one should be called qualify new lead. Actually, I think it's called qualify new client. Let me check that real quick. Yeah, qualify new client. And then we're going to need to add a new routing rule. And so earlier I said that this was called tool name, and that was just a placeholder, because when VAPI sends over the information, it's not actually called tool name. It's located in this JSON code, and all we need to do is grab it from over here, which is the input, and then put it into the middle here. And then after it's been processed by this node, it's going to output it as output data. So no, that's wrong. So it's just going to be called this, and then qualify new client is going to be renamed qualify new client. And then here it's going to be called handle existing client. Okay. Handle existing client. Perfect. So we can go ahead and hit save. It looks like there was an error here, so let's go ahead and fix that. Rename as, rename as qualify a new client. Save. All right, so perfect. As you can see now, there are 4 different routes that the workflow can take. And all we need to do is we would need to copy this webhook so that we can connect it when the name of the tool is called handle existing client. So we'll just hold on this plus and then go to the left side here. Now it's all connected. So also, if you want to make it look a little cleaner, you can just right click and then hit tidy up workflow. Perfect. So as you can see, it cleaned up a lot. Now we can save it. Now, one thing also, by the way, is that the easiest way to actually do this is to just use our AI, because obviously we can go through this one by one, and which will be fine, but it's easier to just use the AI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, click on these three dots. I'm going to hit download. And this one, I'm going to call it the ultimate agent.json. And basically what that does is it gives me the code for this workflow. And now if we go back to our AI, remember that this AI remembers what we're trying to build. So all we need to do is tell it, okay, well, here is our template. Now I need you to update it with the correct information. So I'm going to go to Finder. I'm going to find the workflow that I just downloaded. So here, and I'm going to drag it over here and put it into the prompt. Okay. So now it's all completely loaded up. And now all I need to do is do some prompt engineering to tell it what exactly we need to do. So I'm going to say, I have attached the workflow where I started to update a template for an appointment setter. However, there are still many fields which I have yet to update. I need you to use your understanding of the assistant prompt, the tool JSON, and of this example template in order to update the template with the full workflow JSON for my new agent, which will be for the med spa niche. Triple check for accuracy, then respond with the full workflow JSON. Okay, so what did I do here? And you're probably wondering, like, okay, well, it just took you 1 minute to write that prompt. Well, it's much faster to write this prompt than trying to recode the entire thing by yourself. It's literally going to take you hours to do. So basically what I did here is I basically gave it some context saying, okay, well, here is what I currently have. And as you know, we've already worked on these system prompts, and you also have the information from the tool JSON. So all that I need to do is I need for you to update the template with the information from the assistant prompt and from the tool JSON, and then triple check, and then give me the full code. So go ahead and hit run. Perfect. So while that's loading, we can actually just get started over here, and I'll show you how to set up your Google Calendar. So this is, by the way, called a code node. Let's show you that real quick. Basically what this does is it does some math in order to calculate the available slots that are potential. So basically, let's say in any given day, there's 24 hours, right? But if every appointment is 30 minutes, then in reality, there are 48 potential slots. And that's going to cover the entire day. And so that's basically going to give us the full range of potential slots. After that, we're going to get our Google Calendar events. So click on that. Now, this is going to ask you to set up a Google credential. Now, if you don't already have that set up, you're going to have to create a new credential. I've already created a video for that, so I'm going to link to it right above. So once you've done that, click on calendar mode on the list, and then just select your calendar from the list. So it's going to be my calendar here. All right, so once you selected your calendar, down here, it's asking for before and after. Now, basically what that means is it's asking you between what time are you trying to get the events in your calendar. So let's say, for example, I'm trying to get events on January 1st to January 2nd. Well, the way that I would do that is, if you remember from our tool JSON, that in the check availability tool, the information that we need to gather is called initial search date and time. So if in that tool, the time that I'm searching for is January 1st, what'll happen is I'm going to start at midnight on January 1st, and then the after is just going to be the end of the day, right? And so that's going to help me to get all of the slots that I'm looking for. Perfect. And after I've gotten the events from my Google Calendar, then I'm going to use another code node in order to calculate what slots are available. So if you remember here, we calculated what slots are potential. Here, we calculate what slots are taken. And then finally, we need to calculate which slots are available by basically subtracting the slots that are taken from the potential slots. And once that is done, it's going to go into a webhook, which sends the available slots back over to our AI voice agent to tell the client. Perfect. Now, once that is done, the client's probably going to say something like, well, yeah, so now I want to book an appointment for, let's say, January 2nd. Okay. And so once it does that, it's going to route the workflow over here into the book appointment route. It's going to go over here. It's going to try to book the appointment into the Google Calendar. So go ahead and double click here. It's going to automatically update with the credential that you just created in the last step. And then the same thing here, go to calendar from the list, and then you would just select your calendar that you want to book it in. Now, usually it's going to be the same exact calendar that you mentioned in the first one, and because that's your calendar, right? But for my purposes, I'm going to set it to a demo calendar so that it's not interrupting with my actual calendar. So I'll click on that. So here it's asking for a start time and a end time. Now, if you remember from our tool JSON, basically it's saying that we need to collect a start date and time and an end date and time. So that is exactly what we're going to use here for booking that appointment. And also the additional fields is basically going to tell the agent what to book the appointment as in our Google Calendar. So for example, the description is going to be a description, and then summary here just means title. It's a little bit confusing. They could have just named it title, but they named it summary. But basically this is going to be the title. It's going to be, oh, by the way, you can hit this to basically bring it up and make it a little bit easier to see. So I'll click on that. It says that it's going to be the business name, consultation, client name. So in this case, the business name, I believe, says something like Glow Up. So it's like Glow Up Consultation, and then whatever the client's name is. So if you see these curly brackets, that basically means that it's a variable and it's going to change every time based on the information that got passed in. So perfect. And then for the description, it's saying that here's the client contact, their name, their phone number. And remember, this information is still for the real estate agent. So we do need to get that workflow from our AI in order to paste that in. Cool. So that is done. And now these webhooks are basically just saying something like the appointment has been successfully booked. And then I'll tell our AI agent that it's successful. Same thing here. Qualification details noted. You may now proceed with the offer. Now, in this case, the offer is basically saying, yeah, now we can book an appointment. And remember, we just copied that here. So it's exactly the same. So now it is all done. All we need to do is basically update this section here in order to make sure that we need to update this section of qualification details in order to make sure that it is making sense for our new agent, which is for the med spa niche. So in order to do that, we'll go back over to our AI. And as you can see, it just finished our coding. So all we need to do is go back over here and then copy that code. Now, real quick, let's just see what it said. It updated the variables to say the Glow Clinic, and it is a 30-minute duration instead of 50 minutes, which is correct. The switch node has been reconfigured to route based on 4 new tools, so that's also correct. It rewrote the calendar event, which is what I was saying earlier, it needs to fix the qualification details. Now correctly references qualify new client. Perfect. Adding a new response node. So for the handle existing client path, it ensures logical branch feedback to VAPI. That's a really minor thing. I think that shouldn't matter, but as you can see, it can understand it pretty well and it can do what you need to do. So I'm going to go back over here, and literally what I can do is just delete all this. And then just click anywhere and hit Control V and paste it. So as you can see, it just did all of that. It looks like it's correct, but we'll go through one by one to just confirm. So if you go through this, production URL looks good. It's of type post and same. So that's correct. Now click on variables. Here it's saying the clinic's staff, the Glow Clinic. That's correct. Consultation. Here it's asking for us to actually set the time zone. So that's important. My time zone is American Chicago. You just have to change this to whatever your time zone is. Here it's saying that I'm starting my workday at 8 and I'm ending it at 6 p.m. So that's okay. Meeting duration is 30. Booking cadence is 30. Perfect. Buffer before and buffer after. Okay. Now here it's saying that there are 4 different ways to route it, and it looks exactly the same. So that's perfect. Here, I'm pretty sure it's not going to change the code, so we'll just leave that. And then here, since it basically canceled out our credential, we'll just have to click that into that one more time and set that up. So it's going to automatically upload your calendar from the list. Choose your calendar. Perfect. This should all be the same. Same. Okay. The only thing that changed is here. So here, calendar from the list, and choose your calendar. Start date time, that's the same. End date time, that's correct. So here, oh, okay. So as you can see, it did some changing. It changed this to basically say business name, which in this case is the Glow Clinic, the service name, which is in this case consultation, which is actually the same thing, but it's using the variable instead of the basically hard coding in the word consultation, which is nice. And then here it's saying that it's just adding the client name. So that's actually the same exact thing. Okay. Now over here, it should have updated our description, which it did. So it's saying the client contact is that, the phone number is good, and then the qualification details is what are they interested in and have they had the treatment before, which is correct. Okay. Perfect. So as you can see now, that's all complete. So just hit save. And then we need to activate the workflow so that the webhook here is actively, constantly listening for information that gets passed over from the AI voice agent via those tools. So go ahead and click on active. And now all there's left to do is just go over to VAPI to get the phone number and test it all out. So real quick before I do that, I do want to just go through a overview of what we just did, make sure everything's set up so that it works on the first try. So what did we do? We created our assistant. We set it all up. We gave it a system prompt, updated the temperature. We changed the voice. We left all that alone. And then we gave it the 4 tools that we needed. That's perfect. Then for each of our tools, we basically gave it the parameters and then we updated the server URL. So that looks good. That looks good. Good. Okay, so let's just check this one more time. That's fine. And then for our phone number, we create a new free phone number, and then we assigned the phone number, the assistant that we created. So that's perfect. Finally, we went over to n8n, and then we filled out our entire workflow, which I just confirmed for you. And then I hit save, and then I activated it by clicking this to active. So that sounds good. All right, so now that we got everything set up, the last thing that there's to do is to go ahead and head over to VAPI and then get our phone number and call that phone number.
Thank you for calling the Glow Clinic. This is Chloe. How may I help you today? To best assist you, could you let me know if you are a new or an existing patient?
Hey, Chloe, I'm a new patient.
Welcome to the clinic. I'm happy to help you get started. To begin, what treatment are you interested in today? For example, Botox, fillers, or a skin rejuvenation service?
Sure, yeah, I'm looking for some Botox.
And have you had this type of treatment before?
No.
Perfect. Thank you for that information. Based on your interest in Botox, the next step is to schedule a complimentary, no obligation consultation with one of our specialists. Is that something you'd be open to?
Definitely.
Excellent. Which day would work best for you to come in?
Yeah, can we do next Thursday?
Great news. I have a few times available on that day. We have Thursday, August 14th at 11:30 a.m. and 12 p.m. Would either of those work for you?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do 12 p.m.
Great. I can book that for you. To finalize the appointment, what is your full name?
My name's Anthony.
Okay, Anthony, just to confirm, I have you down for a consultation on Thursday, August 14th at 12 p.m. Is that all correct?
That is correct.
Excellent. Your appointment is confirmed. You'll receive a text message with all the details shortly. We look forward to seeing you at the Glow Clinic. Goodbye.
All right, thank you very much, Chloe. All right, so there you go. As you can see, it automatically created it just as we said. And it says it correctly identified that I'm looking for Botox and that I have not had the treatment before. So that is absolutely correct. Now, Yeah, you just watched me do part 1 of this entire series. I just created from scratch the 24/7 AI receptionist, and there was a lot of debugging along the way, a lot of critical thinking along the way. So I hope you enjoyed kind of seeing the thought process about how we're able to do that. And the cool thing about this is just the beginning. We still have plenty of steps left to go, and it's going to get even more exciting and even more featureful from here. So again, if you want to get some of those documents and more information, go ahead and go to my school community. Here from there, you can click on YouTube prompts and templates, where I'm going to make posts about, um, every part that I'm uploading to this series. And also, if you have any questions, you can come to the one-on-one support tab, where you can ask whatever question you want, and I'll get you the help that you need. Okay. And also, we have 3 new courses that just came out, so that there's plenty of stuff for you to learn, and hopefully you'll be able to build your own agents, have a lot of fun with it, and make some money. So again, if you enjoyed, make sure you subscribe. And in my next video, I'm going to show you that clinic expert answering frequently asked questions with RAG. So, all right, thank you very much for watching, and have a good one.